The desert wind howled like a wounded beast as Eli Thompson tightened his grip on the reins. His horse snorted, uneasy beneath the swirling sand. Beside him, Jonas McGraw let out a reckless laugh, pulling his bandana higher over his mouth. "Ain't this a fine night for trouble?" he shouted above the storm. Eli didn't answer. He never did when the air carried warnings. The sky burned crimson, a streak of dying light fighting the darkness. Jagged rocks jutted from the earth like broken teeth, and the narrow trail ahead twisted toward Devil's Canyon, a place most men avoided, and the smart ones never mentioned. Eli's gaze was fixed forward, sharp and steady, but inside, memories stirred like restless ghosts. He'd ridden through battlefields darker than this, but the silence beneath the wind tonight felt different. Thick, deliberate. Jonas nudged his horse closer. "I'm telling you, Eli, the old coot in Cedar Junction wasn't lying. There's gold out here. Enough to buy every saloon from here to Santa Fe." His grin flashed through the dust, cocky and bright. Eli's jaw tightened. Gold's just rock until someone dies for it. Then let's hope it's someone else. Jonas spurred his horse forward, eager, as if danger were a game meant to be won through charm alone. They reached a weather-beaten saloon perched at the canyon's edge. Lantern light flickered through warped windows, casting strange shadows that danced across the cracked wood. Inside, the air smelled of kerosene and stale whiskey. An old woman behind the counter squinted at them, her face carved with more years than the canyon outside. "You ride further," she rasped, pointing toward the canyon. "And you won't ride back." Jonas chuckled. "Lady, I've been thrown out of worse places than hell." She didn't laugh. Her eyes locked on Eli. "The earth remembers what men forget. That place swallows the greedy and spits out bones." Eli felt a chill slide down his spine. The woman's warning wasn't theatrical. It was weary, as if she'd said it 100 times before and buried every man who ignored it. But on the wall behind her, half hidden by cobwebs, hung a hand-carved map. It showed a trail through the canyon leading to a hidden valley marked with a crude sun symbol. Jonas's eyes widened. "Well, would you look at that? Providence herself left us directions." Eli wanted to turn back. His instincts screamed it. But Jonas was already outside, saddling up, laughter echoing into the storm. Against his better judgment, Eli followed. They descended into the canyon. Shadows stretched long, swallowing the trail. The air grew damp, heavy. Then the ground shuddered beneath their horses. A low rumble deepened into a roar. "Eli," Jonas began, but the trail cracked. The horses reared. Rocks split apart as the earth yawned open beneath them. For one heartbeat, Eli saw the terror in Jonas's eyes, stripped of humor. Then the world dropped away. Darkness swallowed everything. Eli woke to the sound of water trickling nearby, soft and steady, like a heartbeat in the earth. Warm sunlight pressed against his eyelids, coaxing him back to consciousness. His body ached, every muscle bruised, but he was alive. He opened his eyes to find himself lying in grass, thick dew-drenched grass that shimmered under a golden sky. For a long moment, he stared upward, disoriented. The canyon had been a jagged tomb of dust and stone. This place felt impossibly alive. A groan came from somewhere above. Eli sat up sharply, hand instinctively reaching for his revolver. Jonas dangled upside down from a cluster of vines, his boots tangled like some absurd caught animal. His hat lay crushed beneath him. "Well," Jonas muttered, blinking through leaves, "either heaven has a sense of humor, or we're lost in somebody's garden." Eli pushed himself to his feet, scanning their surroundings. Towering trees arched overhead, their canopies stitched together like a vast emerald roof. Strange flowers glowed faintly along the forest floor, and the air buzzed with the hum of insects he didn't recognize. There was no sign of the canyon walls, no trail, not even the horses. It was as if they'd fallen into a world sealed off from time. "Cut me down, will you?" Jonas barked, wriggling impatiently. Eli sliced the vines with his hunting knife. Jonas hit the ground with a grunt, then dusted himself off, grinning. "I've woken up in worse places. Usually after whiskey." Eli didn't answer. He crouched beside a patch of broken wagon wood, half buried in vines. Rusted tools lay nearby, along with the tattered remains of boots. Whoever had been here never left. A weight settled in his gut. This wasn't untouched paradise. It was a graveyard disguised as beauty. They followed a narrow stream through the trees, hoping to find a way out. The deeper they went, the stranger the valley became. Carvings covered stone pillars along the path, curved lines and feminine figures etched with reverence. Birds scattered at their approach, but the forest itself seemed to listen. Jonas tried to lighten the tension. Maybe it's a hidden ranch run by nuns. Or Amazons. Either way, I'm fine with it. Eli didn't smile. Stay alert. The warning came too late. An arrow hissed past Jonas's ear, embedding itself in a nearby trunk. They froze. From the shadows emerged figures. Silent, swift, and armed. Women. Dozens of them, faces streaked with paint, bows drawn tight. Their eyes were sharp, unreadable. Before either man could reach for a weapon, they were surrounded. Spears pressed against their chests, forcing them to their knees. A tall woman stepped forward, her presence commanding. She studied them like hunters examine prey. Jonas raised his hands. Ladies, if this is a welcome party, I'm flattered. No one laughed. The woman barked an order, and the warriors closed in. Eli's pulse quickened. Whatever this place was, it wasn't a sanctuary. It was a trap, and they had walked straight into it. The cell was little more than a pit enclosed by woven reeds and hardened clay, but the air inside pressed down like a lid. Eli paced the narrow space, boots grinding against packed earth, every movement measured. Outside, torches burned through the mist, their light flickering across the silhouettes of armed women. Somewhere nearby, drums thudded in a steady, unnerving rhythm, slow, deliberate, like the valley itself was waiting for something. Jonas lounged against the wall, arms folded behind his head, wearing a crooked smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Well, partner," he said lightly, "I always figured I'd end up surrounded by women. Just didn't think it'd be under armed supervision." Eli ignored the joke. He was listening, always listening. He caught fragments of conversations drifting through the camp. Rituals, ceremonies, something about dawn. The language was unfamiliar, but the intent was clear. They weren't captives by accident. They were part of a plan. The tall woman who'd led their capture returned at dusk. She approached their cell with the solemnity of a judge, her braided hair glinting in torchlight. 2 guards followed, holding intricately woven robes dyed in deep reds and ochres. She spoke slowly, her voice low and commanding, and gestured toward the garments. Jonas frowned. "She wants us to wear dresses?" Eli stepped closer to the bars. "No," he murmured. "Ceremonial clothes." The woman's gaze locked on his, steady and unyielding. There was no malice in her expression, only conviction. She believed in whatever was coming. When she left, the guards remained, watching like hawks. Jonas slumped back, rubbing his face. "You ever think maybe we're not the heroes here? Maybe we're just props?" Eli didn't respond. He stared at the robes, his mind moving like clockwork. Every instinct told him to act before dawn. He'd spent too many nights in enemy camps during the war not to recognize the rhythm of preparation. Something significant was coming, and once it began, escape might be impossible. When the guards changed shifts, Eli leaned close to Jonas. "We're leaving tonight." Jonas raised an eyebrow. "And how exactly?" "We're surrounded, unarmed, and I'm pretty sure half of them could shoot the wings off a fly at 50 yards. Then we move quiet," Eli said. "No jokes. No noise. Follow my lead." Under the cover of darkness, they slipped through the narrow opening Eli had quietly loosened earlier, creeping between shadows and torchlight. Each step was deliberate. Jonas, for once, stayed silent. The village sprawled ahead. Huts, bonfires, and rows of carved wooden totems shaped like guardians. The air smelled of smoke and herbs. They reached the edge of the settlement, where a massive gate of reinforced logs blocked the canyon passage. Hope flickered. But before they could approach, a sharp cry pierced the night. Torches flared to life around them. The tall woman emerged with her warriors, their bows raised, faces stern and unyielding. She stepped forward, voice echoing through the valley. Though Eli didn't understand her words, the meaning was unmistakable. There would be no escape before dawn. Jonas exhaled softly. Guess the party starts early. The drums quickened, rolling like distant thunder. Dawn was coming, and with it whatever fate the valley had prepared. Dawn crept over the valley like a blade drawn slowly from its sheath, cutting through the mist with pale gold light. The villagers gathered in a wide clearing, their faces solemn, painted with symbols of fertility and strength. Drums pounded in unison, building a rhythm that rattled through Eli's chest like a second heartbeat. Smoke curled from the ceremonial fires, thick and sweet, carrying the scent of crushed herbs. Eli stood between two guards, wrists bound, his jaw set. Across the clearing, Jonas shuffled nervously, his usual swagger replaced by a brittle, uneasy grin. Neither spoke, but their eyes met across the crowd, an unspoken understanding passing between them. Whatever happened next, it had to happen now. The tall woman stepped forward, her robe trailing like flowing embers. She raised a carved staff toward the rising sun, and the drumming fell silent. A hush swept through the crowd. She began to speak in a low, measured tone, each word carrying weight. The people answered in chorus, their voices rising like wind through canyons. Jonas leaned toward Eli. Got any bright ideas? One, Eli whispered back. Hold on. As the woman lifted the staff to its highest point, Eli lunged. He swung his bound wrists like a club, knocking the nearest guard off balance. In the same motion, he seized a burning torch from the ceremonial pyre. Flames flared wildly. The crowd gasped. For an instant, confusion rippled through the valley like a stone dropped in still water. Jonas reacted instinctively, kicking another guard and grabbing Eli's knife from a fallen belt. I was starting to think you'd gone quiet for good. Move. Eli barked. They sprinted through the clearing, weaving between startled villagers. Shouts erupted. Arrows sliced through the air, splintering the ground around them. Eli hurled the torch toward the central totems. The wood caught instantly, flames racing upward, spreading like dry grass fire. Panic swept through the ceremony. They reached the gate, massive and fortified, but the flames drew the warriors back toward the village. Jonas fumbled with the heavy locking mechanism, cursing under his breath. Eli turned to face the pursuing guards. For the first time since they'd fallen into this place, his fear sharpened into resolve. He wasn't running from ghosts anymore. With a final wrench, Jonas forced the gate open. Sunlight spilled through like a flood. They mounted two tethered horses left near the entrance and kicked off, hooves thundering against the canyon floor. Behind them, the valley was a blur of smoke, fire, and furious voices. As they climbed the rocky path, Eli glanced back. The tall woman stood framed by the burning gate, watching in silence. There was no hatred in her eyes, only certainty as if this outcome had always been written. Jonas laughed breathlessly. Next time I say shortcut, punch me in the face. Eli didn't smile, but something inside him had shifted. The weight he'd carried for years felt lighter, burned away with the valley smoke. Ahead lay the open desert, endless and bright. Behind them, the drums had fallen silent.